Fire away, sir.
Okay. So let's call the meeting to order at 5:35. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Abarca,
Here.
Commissioner Monzon,
Here.
Commissioner Malfatti,
Present.
and Chairperson Yuen.
Present.
Thank you, and Vice Chair Fung is absent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Review of the agenda. Any comments on the agenda for tonight? Okay. Hearing none. We don't have to have a roll call approval for the agenda, right?
Not for the agenda.
No.
Just the minutes.
That's just for the minutes. Okay.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Moving on to public comment. Let's see, it doesn't look like we have any members of the public on the Zoom call. Were there any emails from members of the public?
No, we have not received any written public comment.
Okay. So moving on to approval of the meeting minutes from last month. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion. Okay, put motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Malfatti, Jolene, I don't know if you're on mute. Just taking a roll call for the approval of the meeting minutes. Okay, see, you're on mute now.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, goodness. I'm gonna have to put my bulldog in another room, so I quit muting it.
Oh, that's okay.
I approve. I
Okay,
approve.
thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Yuen,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Abarca,
Approve.
thank you. And Commissioner Monzon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved.
Thank you. Items from staff. TAC meeting report.
That is on me. So, Chair Yuen, last meeting I kind of alluded to a lot of our roles and responsibility as the Traffic Safety Commission. It has some shades similar to the Traffic Advisory Committee, and then we discussed for us, when we have to bring up any kind of like deficiencies in safety, we should bring it up to TAC, because this is a compendium of multidisciplinary staff in the city that evaluates these requests from the members of the public and our neighborhoods, and then works with them on specific implementation. So I just wanted to make sure I report back some of the requests that we staff are fielding, and to just kind of note that these are things that we worked on at least in the last TAC meeting in June. So neighbor requests in Galway and Wright Court requesting add a no parking zone at the corners, to increase visibility of oncoming cars. What staff evaluated with the police department and other public works folks, that actually right now, as it is, even without a red zone at the corners, parking is actually not is prohibited at the corners per vehicle code 22500. That is then now an enforcement issue for our police department to look into. And that's how staff has responded to that public request. Another request was on Miller Avenue in Willow, where we had a member of the public request to add stop signs, paint white stop markers, and add a no parking zone to improve visibility again and make the intersection safer. But I believe that staff recommended, as you see, that approving the request of the installation for stop signs and crosswalks because the traffic volumes that we did have from 2019 met the warrant for installing stop signs at this location. So that has now been moved forward through our maintenance division, and they'll be installing those stop signs and crosswalks soon. We don't normally get an estimate of when they'll install it, but as long as it's in one of their work orders, that will be done. And this was a similar request that we received from actually the Parking Place Commission about there's a business on 634 El Camino Real where the business wanted to specifically extend the 24-minute time limit, the green zone, like short-term parking meters in front of their business to 45 or 60 minutes, just to cater to their customers. Our staff at TAC did not recommend that extending the time limit because that is meant to create a high turnover for these retail spaces. And we can only accommodate a maximum of 24 minutes for this parking meter, or for these types of zones, I mean. I believe that request was denied, and at the same time, we are going to be making changes to El Camino Real, which is in the Caltrans right away, which is in itself a different process altogether, rather than just regular city street and like the downtown, for example. So that was that request. Other one was Commercial Avenue. A resident requested to add speed bumps on Commercial just around the corner of Chestnut. However, we did, I believe TAC did not recommend adding speed humps there, just given that Commercial Avenue is classified as collector road. And based on data and a traffic study that we had, concluded that a lot, 85th percentile of vehicles were traveling within 25 miles per hour. Therefore, there was no observed or studied or proven speeding that was happening to warrant those speed humps on that stretch of road. There is given that it is a collector road, I believe that this stretch of Commercial Avenue does warrant a traffic signal, and that is one of the projects that the city is pursuing to install there, depending on funding that we get to do these types of projects. And then other projects that we did look at, other requests, was Brentwood parking lot. I believe we've been getting a lot of calls from either the public or the business owners there to change all the parking there to state a 2-hour time limit. But it's not something that staff was able to conclude a specific action. I think we needed to talk to the businesses and and do observations at that parking lot. Then we'll come back next month, or this month, I mean, to look at the parking lot again. 713 Maple, request for better signage, flashing lights or reflectors to indicate a median. There's quite a few requests. But this, in this case, is that there was a concern for safety. However, staff did not recommend adding 4-way stop signs at the intersections of Maple and Aspen and Maple and Pine, since traffic volumes that we have collected in 2019 were not enough to warrant stop signs at this intersection. So that, but however, part of this request was approved, and that I believe that our maintenance division has a work order to then add nose yellow and reflectors to make sure that the median there is more visible. And I believe the last request that was evaluated at TAC was at Arroyo and at Lomitas to Bury Park. And so again, similar request for speed bumps or any kind of speed reduction device because cars were speeding. But I don't believe staff recommended that, given that, again, like data that we already have on this stretch of road indicated that vehicles were already traveling below the speed limit, and there was no speeding that was really being observed except for a few times, and did not warrant the installation of those types of devices. And so again, it's something that our police department was made aware of, and so now they're working on that, and including the street as part of their care program. So that's the solution without having to construct new speed humps and things like that. So, and I believe that was the end of like the request that we fielded from the public. And then obviously any questions I can answer, I will try.
Just want to thank
Any
you for this
questions for-
report. I agree with a lot of the actions that they came up with. They seem very reasonable. Thanks.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the responses from staff. I noticed that for a number of these items, staff used, I guess to confirm the traffic volumes, they used Streetlight to, I guess, get those the volumes and speeds. Now my understanding of Streetlight is that it's a subscription service, I guess, that some cities subscribe to that enables them to get, I guess, crowdsourced traffic data, basically data tracked through smartphones. I guess it captures the number of, I guess, people with smartphones who travel, through an intersection. Would you be able to? How long has the city had a Streetlight subscription? How does it work?
It's a good question. I can't speak to that specifically, but I'm aware that we've had a Streetlight subscription for at least 2 to 3 years. So I can flag that for one of our engineers to kind of provide us with more info, and I'll have to loop back with the commission on that one.
What does mean the Streetlight
Oh.
subscription?
Streetlight is basically a data collection firm that the city uses to then, then they install devices on, let's say like a traffic light, and that collects data on how fast people are going through the intersection, how many people are going through the intersection, and it's not collected the way data or the way vehicle counts usually are collected. You put like a rubber strip and then you count the number. That's how you would count the number of people that pass through, like one lane of an intersection. But here it's actually tracking available cell phone data of like on the number of people who cross that intersection and how fast. So it's a company we contract with to collect that data for us. So when we do get requests like this, we look at that intersection and say, oh, there's like 1,000 vehicles crossing this intersection. We need to make it safer. So that's how we're using that.
Yeah. From what I understand, it's a great tool for like traffic counts as well. So,
Yeah.
For example, for traffic studies, if you're looking at an intersection and you have to get data on the number of cars that are making a certain turn, at the intersection, in the past, what you would have to do is you'd have to have someone sit out there at the intersection and manually count the number of cars that make a certain turn. But with Streetlight, that data is collected automatically, I guess 24 hours a day, and there's less of a need for manual labor to be able to get
And when we
that
can collect
traffic
data, right? So, sorry to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
The benefit is that we can collect data for a larger, like area than before. It's like, oh, here, have somebody standing at this intersection and like 3 others, and that's what they'll do all day, is to like measure physical like observations. And here we can say like, oh, for one neighborhood, this is how many cars are moving through these streets. So at least, yeah, but we can get clarification on the city's partnership with Streetlight, and then we'll report back on that one.
Thank you.
Chris, on this request, so there are many requests that will not be able to, the city will not be able to address it. Is there any follow-up to those individuals to let them know the reasons and that the city will look at different ways to improve their concerns? And I'm asking that because we want the people to be encouraged to participate on our commission, and this is great what we're seeing in front of us. People are, voicing their concerns. Hopefully we can address it, most of them, or at least do a follow-up, a study or something that the residents know that the city is working towards these concerns.
Yeah, my understanding from being on TAC for the last year plus is that if there is anything that we don't have, let's say for like someone asks for some safety improvements somewhere, like on a specific street, and we don't have enough information on that street, we do reach back out, or at least one of our staff from the engineering division reach back out to the person requesting that and say, hey, we're going to look at this, we're going to have people studying it, and then we'll let you know of the action that the city will take. So no, it's a very iterative process. So with a lot of these, like on the screen right now, it says for Commercial Avenue, that first one, we have a response letter to this request. So like it's obviously a two-way communication. They make a request, we'll let them know what that's, and especially explain why we're not pursuing the actions they suggested, but because there's some things that we can't put stop signs everywhere, especially when we don't need them, right? So like things like
right. Thank you. And how do you describe? Can you explain better what is a collective street?
Actually, I want you to have Chair Ewan explain that. So that we classify roadways in the city. Like there are, the bigger ones that can handle in terms of capacity. There's the highways and the freeways that you have, right? And then there's arterials, like so. Like you have like your main road, smaller roads that lead to the main road, right? So when you think of like an arterial, you think of like Orange, right? So because that is a street that you can take from a smaller residential or neighborhood street, and once you get in that, it's usually like 2 lanes that then leads you to a bigger road like El Camino, right? Or so a collector is something that is a little bit smaller than arterial. Justin, let me know if I'm off base here.
Yeah. So an arterial would be something like El Camino or Westboro. A multi-lane road that handles that handles a lot of capacity, not as much as a freeway, but a lot more than local streets. And then on the other end of the scale, then you have local streets. So those are like your residential, your low speed, low volume residential streets. There's a lot of them in the residential areas of the city. And then a collector street is something in between. A collector street is a street that basically funnels the local residential traffic to the arterials. So I guess what was the Commercial Avenue?
Commercial Ave, yeah.
Yeah, so Commercial, that's south of Grand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so those are streets that are sort of, again, they're sort of in between your really low speed residential streets and your higher speed, higher volume arterial streets. It's kind of like, so the way that streets are classified, if you think about like arteries and veins, I think arteries are the bigger ones, right?
Yeah.
So arteries are the main channels of blood flow, and then the veins sort of are the smaller ones that branch out from there. So it kind of works in a similar way where you have arterials are the main thoroughfares, and then you have collectors that branch off of that as sort of an intermediate sized street, and then you have the local residential streets that are the slowest and the smallest that branch off of that.
Awesome. So a collective street that has some over speeding scenario cannot be considered for street bumps?
There are multiple reasons for that. I think in this specific case, they didn't, because I believe the request for speed bumps from commercial around the corner of Chestnut. So I think that's what then led to that next step, which is look at the actual commercial avenue, and because our data that we've collected on that street does not record any excessive speeding throughout the day for any of our data collection. So it indicates that, like, this might be just a nuisance for this this member of the public, that they observe the speed as, like, but it may not be occurring throughout the day. So I think that's kind of the
So some collective streets could be considered for bump stops depending on the criteria. All right.
absolutely, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So the key is, so I guess the main criteria is whether the 85th percentile speed, basically the majority of cars are traveling within 25, then a speed bump is not necessary. Is that sort of the policy or the practice that the city is taking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so. Mhm.
Thank you.
All right. Any other
Okay.
questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll move forward to items from commission.
So I guess this is a good chance for me to report on the progress that we're making with the local road safety plan. So the city's developing a local road safety plan, so the working group that is working on that is made up of I guess the consultant team, city staff, and the chairperson and the vice chairperson of both the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Traffic Safety Commission. So that's the working group that's I guess contributing to the development of the local road safety plan, which is basically a quantitative data analysis of all of the reported crashes between 2016 and 2020 within the city, analyzing the data, looking at trends, and developing priorities for large projects as well as for low cost and cost-effective countermeasures to address some of the most common types of collisions that have been reported. So I think staff is trying to schedule a field visit with the working group for later this month. Is that correct? For several of the intersections that
Yeah, I believe that
some of the highest crash rates.
Yes. So I believe that the consultant is trying to schedule the working group for the local road safety plan to meet on site at one of, I think, 5 of those intersections where the data that they've collected, it seems to indicate a higher rate for crashes at those specific intersections, and then do a field visit there. So yeah, yes. That's short answer to your question.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. What are you guys talking about? Yeah, because it looks like I had a feeling that you guys are talking of. Are you guys talking before these meetings or within the meetings? Because I feel like there is some subjects that we have no clue, and you get very deep into it. So
No,
maybe I'm just getting the wrong impression, but we gotta be focused on the agenda. And if you're bringing something that you've been talking in between the meeting, you gotta let us know. So you mentioned something about the bike, there is a commission, something going on that we don't know anything about it. And somebody's from this commission there. Please explain that a little bit.
It's working with the other commission, yeah.
Yeah, there is the city has started a study to prepare a local road safety plan. We mentioned it on a previous commission meeting before. There is a small working group of that that we're using the consultant to look at some of our streets, and a lot of the data we've collected, like in street light, police reports and things like that, to look at those kind of crash data, right? So remember our work with Vision Zero and making sure that we address that crashes on our streets and make things safer, right? So this is that data collection part of it, that local road safety plan. And what we will come out with is our consultant is going to come out with a recommendation to look at the data on the number of the worst streets that we have, because we don't know, right? And then from there, then they will also provide us with recommendations on some like low cost improvements to do, like add a crosswalk here, add some signage, do some speed humps, right? So that's where we are at this effort. So there's representatives from BPAC, traffic safety, and city staff that's kind of working with the consultant at this time. And then
who is the representative from this commission?
Chair Ewan and Vice Chair Fung.
And who they asked them? I don't know anything about it. Did you ask on this commission?
Hang on. So we needed a small group of this working group to kind of get this work started, because what we will need the Traffic Safety Commission, including you, Chair, Commissioner Monzon, is when we get to that Vision Zero, when we do launch into that larger work, that's when we'll need all of the commission's effort.
Yeah, but why you didn't tell us before? Like, you never tell us about this kind of stuff, like a whole commission. Like, why we are learning this stuff now?
I mean,
It was it was brought up at an earlier meeting as well. When the plan was first kicked off, I think Chris brought it up.
Yeah, but the point is that, Christopher, you never mentioned to all of us. So it looks like, and we need to be informed, right? If somebody from us, the five of us, is going to be somewhere else representing us, we need to be at least communicate, and we will pick the person. You do not pick the person. We will pick the person who will represent us, right? Or, I mean, it gotta be a consensus. I just don't feel comfortable with the way you guys are doing it. I'm sorry. You gotta be transparent.
okay, noted.
Why don't we? I guess is something we can do. Can we have regular updates on the local road safety plan from staff, just to keep everyone else in the loop?
Sure. Yeah.
Would be definitely nice.
Interject something. I do recall us discussing about street safety when I brought up the bicyclists, and I remember asking, do they have to follow the traffic safety laws, like stop at stop signs and whatnot, And then I mentioned about a truck hitting a bicyclist, and then you talked about the Safe Streets study, and I believe you would talk about, I forget what they call it, something view or something of the street. That's why they were going to study that. So the truck could see the bicyclist easier or something to that effect. And, but I do agree that a study needs to be done. This is going to sound very bizarre, but when you collect the data, Justin, is it over a long period of time? And the reason I ask is, since we're starting to open back up from the pandemic, I have seen the craziest drivers. And it seems like there's more road rage on the news and more, speeders and just outraged drivers. And so I'm hoping for the time when things get back to normal and people start using a little common sense when they're, no matter if they're on a bicycle or in a car. And I was just curious if your studies are a long-term study or just within the last couple of months, I'd say. Are they going to be like long-term data analysis, like for a year, or is it going to be more of a short-term thing? And either Chris or Justin could answer that.
Thanks, Jolene. Like, I believe the data collection that the consultant was looking at, or the data set, was from a lot of like the crashes reported to the police and some other sources of information over, I believe, like a 5-year period. So
Oh, great.
yeah.
Okay.
So it ranges like pretty wide.
Got you. Okay,
Mhm.
that's wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right. Other questions, comments? All right.
I have another question, please. Do we know how, I've been getting some questions in the neighborhood as far as the traffic lights timing on Linden. It seems that it changed now that the phase 2 is complete, almost complete. Seems in the morning that it's taking longer. Is that something in the morning when there is little traffic? It looks like kind of like it stays the longer time, perhaps from the evening to the next morning. Is that something that who supervises that, and how is that adjusted? Because it looks like in the morning there is some delivery trucks for the Sun stores, and it's creating some traffic there. There's not too much movement on Linden.
I mean, that might be an excellent thing to write on a TAC form and have staff look at that, right?
Okay.
So that would be the perfect little concern, because I do know we have these signals timed at like certain points in the day, to make sure, like, when it's rush hour, it cycles faster, right? But it may not have been changed. So that might be a concern you might want to share on the TAC form.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Sure. Okay. Anything
So
else?
I guess so for future updates regarding milestones that are reached with the local road safety plan, is that something that would have to be agendized each time, or is that something that could be briefly touched upon?
Well, we could keep it on the agenda. Same thing with these like TAC meeting kind of feedback that we wanted to put on this agenda. But as we have items, we can keep it on the agenda, and if there's nothing, we can always just skip it. So
sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, we're good.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, yep. If that's it, I guess we'll adjourn at 6:08, just in time for dinner. And we'll see each other next month.
Right.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.